grapes are grown. The Columbia Valley is a huge part of Washington, as you can see. Curtis will pull this up. It actually leaks into Oregon on the bottom right there, but it leaves out 3 of the 13 Washington AVAs, and those are the Puget Sound, Columbia Gorge, and then the Lewis and Clark Valley over on the right there. So it holds 10 of the regions, a huge part of it, obviously. But that's the basic around that one. And it does contain actually 99% of all grapes grown in Washington, which I thought was very interesting. All right, I will get into the wine. So first you'd like to start by looking at the color of the wine, and usually you'd want to hold up a white piece of paper behind it. And to do that, you kind of just tilt it down. I won't be able to show you very much on camera, but you tend to tilt it down and you basically look at the edges around the wine that's touching the glass, which is what we call the meniscus. And what I get here is more of like a clearer look, but I would say straw yellow, so a lighter yellow basically. And then I also wanted to point out, this wine is 5% Viognier and 95% Chardonnay, which I thought was interesting. You don't really find many wines like that, but I'll start with the aromas for you guys. I usually will put it on the table and swirl it on the table either clockwise or counterclockwise, and you do this to extract the aromas basically, so you can get a better sniff of everything. After doing that, I will stick my whole nose into the glass, and that's so you can block out any other scents around you basically. And what I'm getting off of this is more of like a citrus lemony, and I'm getting some pear as well. I like to pay attention to oak, especially if it's a Chardonnay, because normally they will have oak. But this one's a little lighter. I smell more of a vanilla, but that can come from the oak. There's just light oak, not very strong like usually is. So now I'm gonna taste on my palate. I'm gonna swish it around my mouth to get every part of my mouth touching the wine, so you can taste if there's tannins, acidity, and balance, and everything like that, as well as different tastes that I'll get. On the palate, I'm getting more of the orange blossom. No oak really. Very, very light oak, if I must say. So if you're not a huge oak person, I would definitely go for this Chardonnay, the Snoqualmie. The city is the city's medium, and then the balance is pretty medium as well. The finish is obviously the last taste you get of the wine after it's gone down or after you've spit it. And it's lasting pretty long for me. It's very creamy, I've noticed, but let's see. But overall, this wine was actually $6.49 at Total Wine, so it's very affordable. I would definitely purchase it again. It's very cost-friendly, user-friendly, and it's easy to find as well. So I would definitely buy it again. It's approved by me. But after that, does anyone have any questions for me? Is something I might have missed?
What would you eat with this wine?
Oh, I would pair it with spicy hummus. I actually saw that and I wanted to try that. I might try that after this. And like maybe a veggie plate with the spicy hummus. And I also read that it's very like social wine, like barbecues really when the barbecues start happening, 4th of July and things like that.
Got it. Perfect.
All right. Thank you very much.
Sorry, any questions? Anyone else have any questions? Perfect. Before we move on to our next presenter, I did want to make note that this session is being recorded. I did put that in the notes at the bottom. And it will go out on our CWU YouTube channel for wine studies after it's done. So if you don't want to be recorded, just go ahead and blank out your screen and yeah, you should be fine. So our next presenter is going to be Brian Nault, and Brian is going to talk to us about the wine that he selected, which is a fun and unusual one. So Brian, I'll let you take it from here.
Hi, how's it going, everybody? I'm doing a very interesting wine today. It's from Hood Sport here in the Puget Sound AVA. It's the grape varietal is actually called Island Belle. I've never experienced Island Belle. I've never heard of this grape varietal, Island Belle, and the reason for that is because it's not a traditional wine grape like your Cab Sauv, your Chardonnay, your Syrahs. Those are all Vitis vinifera. This Island Belle is actually a hybrid. It's a Vitis labrusca, so it's not technically made for wine, but you can definitely make it into wine, and it's interesting, different profiles, different flavor profiles, aromas. And it's the same family as the Concord grape. So yeah, and by the way, I forgot to mention, I'm also part of the Wildcat Wine Studies program club, and I'm the secretary and senator of that as well. But yeah, let's just jump into the wine. I've already poured a glass, and right off the bat from the color, which is interesting, is this wine is only 3 years old, so there's not that much aging to it, but it already has more of a brick color than a ruby color, which is quite interesting. And on the aroma, oh wow, you get fresh raspberry, some red cherries in there. Very interesting because, like I said, I've never tasted this grape varietal, so I'm ready to delve into it. Yeah, this wine is very jammy, very chewy. Even though it's a red wine, low tannic to it, almost no tannins at all. You can taste the raspberry in it, blackberry, the cherry. Get a little more of a rhubarb kind of sour to it, of the acidity. It's a good backbone to it, so it's not flabby. This is interesting because I've tried Concord wine, and that's more of a just very sweet, very viscous, not that enjoyable to me, but this has a lot more acidity to it. Very, not bad. I would say this is more for introductory into wine drinking. Very fun wine. So yeah, this is kind of incredible. That comes from Puget Sound, AVA, which is not known for growing wine grapes at all. About 1% of all Washington wine grapes come from Puget Sound AVA. And so it's unique that Island Belle, which is native to the Puget Sound, has a pretty good wine from it. But I would say from Hood's Fort Winery, since I wouldn't purchase this right off the bat, because the price point is like almost $40. It's $36 at the winery. And I think this is more of an enjoyable, fun wine, not more of a serious wine to partake in. But other than that, I enjoy it. It's not bad.
All right. So it's approved.
It's
Price point's
approved.
a little iffy for you, but it's approved.
It's approved. It's very unique. I've never tasted anything like this in the wine field. So
nice. So if you were going to pair it with food, what food would you put with that?
Honestly, when drinking it, it makes me want to eat a peanut butter sandwich. That's the first thing that popped in my mind. It's very jammy, very jammy. But I could also see it go well with some smoked salmon. Also with some barbecues as well. Okay. Maybe some barbecue smoked ribs. Yeah, it just has that kind of fun, I know it's kind of weird to say, fun attitude to it. That you can just drink in the sun and just enjoy on a nice summer day.
Nice. All right, anybody have any questions for Brian? He's working with this weird hybrid varietal, Island Belle.
Do you know a little bit more about the history of the varietal?
Yeah, so Island Belle was actually planted in 1890 on Stretch Island, Grandview, Washington. So, and then the name of it, there's kind of a story about how the name came to be. there was actually a grape grower on Stretch Island, and he had a daughter named Lottie Eckert, and she was considered the belle of the ball, and that was hosted. There was a big dance that was hosted on the island, and she was the belle of the ball, and so the whole Eckert family was at a very fancy dinner, and one of the daughters got tipsy off of wine, and she thought it was everybody thought it was kind of funny, except for the belle of the ball, and the father decided to name the grape Belle of the Ball, or Island Belle.
Nice.
That's very cool. It reminds me of maybe the Beaujolais of Washington State. I don't know. It's like a fun summer drinking wine.
Yeah, exactly.
Light and fun. So, fun little history fact about grape growing in Washington State. Prior to about the 1960s, it was predominantly, I say Vitis labrusca. You guys say it Vitis labrusca? Either way, potato, potato. That was the predominant grape stock that was planted around this area, and that's what most of the wine was. So 1960s, and we brought in Vitis vinifera and became more of an established growing region. So that is a little throwback to Washington State wine history there. So that was fun. Any other questions for Brian before we move on? All right, our next presenter is Carly Brown. So Carly, when you are ready, go ahead and jump in and talk to us about what you selected.
Yes, hello everyone. I hope everyone's doing good today. My name is Carly Brown, and I am the president of the Wildcat Wine Studies here, or Wine Studies Club here at Central. And today I am going to be focusing on the Kiona Vineyards Signature Selection 2016 Cabernet Sauvignon. And this winery is actually located in the Red Mountain AVA area. Here's Curtis. He's pulling that up for you. And it's actually located towards the eastern edge of the Yakima Valley, kind of near Horse Haven Hills and the Tri-City area. And before I jump into this wine, I kind of want to give a little history and some facts about Red Mountain area. So it was first established in 2001, and there's actually only 15 wineries operating in the Red Mountain area. It's a very small AVA, fairly new, fairly small. Kind of going into their soils here are sandy loam and gravel, and there's also high pH levels in the soil there. And the reason why I wanted to bring up the soils themselves is because actually it has a large impact on the wine itself. So when you hear somebody say, oh, there's raspberry or there's blackberry or something like that in the wine, that is actually a lot from the soil and the area it's grown in. So that's kind of an interesting thing to keep in mind. So the primary grapes that are grown in this area are Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Syrah, and Sangiovese. So it's majority red grapes that are grown in this area just because of those high pH levels. Those red grapes really thrive in this area. And so also due to those high pH levels, there's a very a tannic structure to these wines that come out of this area. So that's also something to remember. If you like your high tannic bold reds, Red Mountain would be a great place for you to kind of check out some wines from there. So I'm going to start with my wine. I have a little bit poured in here already, but I'm just going to pour a little bit more just so I can get the aromas and smell everything correctly and give it a little swirl here. So right off the bat, I'm smelling ripe cherries, raspberries, and spice. That spice smell is probably more on the vanilla side, I would say. And that's usually due to the oak. You're going to get a lot of those spicy smells from an oak that's been aged in, or wine that's been aged in oak. All right, so I'll try this. Very good. So right away I am kind of hit with that very bold cherry flavor, raspberry spice, kind of like I said on the nose. If it matches kind of like how mine did, the raspberry smells and the taste, that shows your wine isn't flawed. And so that is a very good thing to see. You want that in your wines. You want your taste and aromas to match. The wine is very tannic and it is also 100% dry. There is no residual sugar in this wine whatsoever. So if you do like a dry wine, then you would really like this cab. And it's also a very full-bodied wine. And when I say this, it just is kind of just full and just really gets you. It's very good wine. And so I would say, this wine shouldn't be drank on its own because of its full body. It would be paired well with sirloins or steaks or even lamb.
Mm-hmm.
And for me personally, I am a huge cab lover. It is my favorite kind of wine. And overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would rate this wine an 8. I think the price value is there. It is $19.99 at Total Wine, and it is a perfect cab for that price point. It is great if you were a cab lover. I would say go get this wine. And also another thing about this wine is Kiona itself. If you guys are interested in this company, they're located about an hour 30, hour 45 outside of Ellensburg. They are not actually selling this exact wine, but they have amazing wines there. I think they are probably one of the best in the area. They are open for curbside pickup if you would like to. They believe they are family owned, and just go support our businesses. And yeah, I'd have to say that that's about it.
Awesome. All right, does anybody have any questions for Carly trying the Kiona cab? Questions? Carly, do you think it needs to be aged? Do you think you would lay it down a little bit longer? Or do you think it's ready now?
For sure. I think one thing that I forgot to mention was like the color. I forgot to do that. But for itself, on the meniscus, there really isn't any orange color showing that there isn't any aging. And I would say it would definitely benefit, like the acid and the tannins would benefit if there was maybe even 2 to 3 up to 5 years worth of aging on this wine. Definitely save it, keep it stored, ready to go.
Okay, so that one could stand to be laid down for a little bit. Nice. And as Carly mentioned, Kiona is about an hour and a half away from campus, family owned and operated for 3 generations out on Red Mountain. So we really do love to support them. So our next presenter then, moving right along, is Tyler. Tyler's going to talk to us about Walla Walla and that AVA. So Tyler, when you're ready, go ahead and jump on in.
Yep. Hello, everyone. My name's Tyler Hirschpink. I am the treasurer of the Wildcat Wine Studies Club. The wine that I'm showcasing today is going to be from Zerba Cellars. It's their 2017 Syrah. Some interesting facts about Walla Walla itself is that it was created in 1984. 2/3 of it is in Washington, 1/3 is in Oregon. Within the AVA, there are 4 different soil types, and some of their top varietals are Cab Sauv, Syrah, Merlot, Cab Franc, and Malbec. There are 2,933 acres of planted vineyards. Now, the wine itself that I'm showcasing today, it is from their Cockburn Vineyard, which is within the Rocks District, which is a sub-AVA of Walla Walla. The wine itself was about $34.99, so moderately priced. It's about 3 hours south of Ellensburg. Thankfully, their tasting room was open, so I was able to sample their other wines, and they're pretty good. I'd recommend going down there and trying it. But as for the wine itself, 100% Syrah, and I'll go into smelling it. Definitely getting some tobacco-y, smoky, kind of dark berries kind of scent. It's pleasing. It's a dark, I'd say ruby colored. Since it's 2017, there's not going to be much on the meniscus as of aging. And then let's head right into tasting it. Good tannins on it, I'd say. I'm definitely getting a kind of a blackberry, kind of tobacco-y kind of taste to it. Maybe a little leather in that. Very good. Maybe not on a hot sunny day, but more of a cold, kind of day to warm you up. Yeah, I think it would go good with probably more smoked foods like bacon, more like smoked ribs, kind of barbecue, kind of a grill setting. But yeah, I definitely recommend it if $34 if you have the money. Definitely recommend taking the drive down to Oregon. The tasting room itself is gorgeous. Uh, but yeah, I definitely recommend this wine. I enjoy it.
Good. All right. Any questions about the Walla Walla area or about Zerba Cellars?
Tyler, when you were at Zerba, did you have an opportunity to taste any of their blends? They have quite a few red blends that I think are pretty moderately priced that are pretty good.
Yeah, so I tried I believe a white. I think it was a Chardonnay. Then I tried a rosé, and then a couple Cab Sauves and a Syrah. But I definitely recommend any of their wines. The ones I tasted at least were exceptional.
In terms of a blend, looks like that was coming from Camden. Camden, are you speaking of the Wild Z, the red blend they do?
So the Wild Z is good. The Wild Z is good, and it's really affordable. I think it's like $17 a bottle. And then if you're moving up in price range a little bit, they have a GSM blend that's really good also. It's one of my favorite Zerba wines. So.
Yeah, they do great Rhone varietals. I really enjoy their Malbec as well. So I'm a big fan of Zerba myself. So awesome that you got to go down there, Tyler. And I'm glad that you were able to actually get into the winery, into the tasting room.
I mean, hey, I'm happy. Maybe I'll have to take the drive down again and try the, what was it? The Wild Z you said?
The Wild Z. Yeah, it's kind of their entry-level red blend. And yeah, very approachable. Yeah.
Nice. I'll have to remember that and try it sometime.
We'll have to get a field trip. Maybe that's in our future. Maybe we talk to Dr. Jellum and we get a field trip going to Walla Walla.
That could be fun.
Okay, so moving on. Was there any last questions for Tyler before we move on to Curtis? Okay, you guys, we're moving right along. Our last presenter today is Curtis, and he is going to talk to us about a Cab Sauv that he's really familiar with. So Curtis, go ahead and jump in when you're ready.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Curtis Condota. I am part of the Wildcat Wine Studies Club, and I will be talking about the Onro Winery specifically, but also encompassing the Yakima Valley AVA, which is one of the more popular ones. But the majority of the grapes actually that come from the Columbia Valley actually come from the Yakima Valley. They have a billion different vineyards there, and there's actually over 100 different tasting rooms in the Yakima Valley alone, the farther you go down into the Tri-Cities and into Red Mountain. But the wine I'm going to be tasting is Onro 100% Cab Sauv 2010 Reserve. So this is actually a wine that I was gifted after I was working there for about a year, and they gifted it to me on my way out. So I've had a bunch of different Cab Sauvs from Onro, but never this vintage. I've had the 2017 and the 2016 and the 2015 actually. And so doing a comparison and kind of a flight of the different varietals is super interesting. This also comes from a vineyard called De Brule Vineyard, which is one of the best, if not the best. It's my personal favorite vineyard in the Yakima Valley. Every wine I've had from there has been fantastic, and they do actually also have a winery / tasting room called Cote Bonneville. And they're a mom and pop winery that do very minimal amount of cases. They actually started their winery just out of their garage and would sell to you if you just came up to them and wanted to taste wine. I definitely recommend checking them out as well. But so to get into the tasting, I'm actually going to introduce one of my favorite tools when wine tasting. Is one of these wine notes books. When I first started the wine program, I thought white wine came from white grapes and red wine came from red grapes, and I had no idea how to even differentiate between a Pinot Noir and a Cab Sauv. But if you open this book, it comes with so many tips and tricks and you just circle what you think the wine tastes like. You can get it for $8 on Amazon. So if you find yourself going on a wine tour soon, this is a perfect way to, one, remember what you had so you can go back and buy it later, and two, do more of a professional tasting if you're into that. So I do have some of the wine poured already, and we'll get right into tasting it. Give it a little swirl here. And again, as everyone mentioned, you want to have your piece of paper to see the true color. This one, because it is 2010, it's a little aged, so it has a little bit orange around the meniscus. So the older a wine gets, it dulls in color. So if you have a really early, if you had a 2020 wine, it would be really bright cherry red. But because this is about 10 years old now, it's a little bit more of a brick color, a lot darker red. and those sorts of things. So we'll get into the aroma. Getting a lot of like dark plums and molasses. Molasses is something that I like to pick out from Cab Sauves. I think whenever I smell molasses, I think of it as a really good Cab Sauv. And one thing I also like to mention whenever I lead a tasting is that your smell is linked directly to your memory. So the first thing that you sense when you smell it, that's what you should say. And you're never wrong, right? Because if it's linked to your memory, then it's your memory that's allowing you to recognize what you're smelling. The palate can be a little bit more precise, but when it comes to aroma, just smell it. That the first thing that comes to your mind, that's what it smells like to you. So yeah, I get a lot of molasses, dark sweet plums, a little bit of darker cherry as well. So I can tell because of how long this wine is aged that it used to have a lot of used to have a really high tannic structure, but because of the aging, it's actually mellowed out a lot. And I actually decanted this, not really decanting, I opened it an hour earlier. So it's been open for about an hour and a half, so it has a little bit of time to breathe. I also poured myself the wine a 30 or 40 minutes ago, just to let it breathe and smooth out a little bit so I can get the fruit profiles. This is something I would call an anniversary wine. I like to call it an anniversary wine because it's fairly expensive. It's a reserve, which means they only made about 2,700 bottles of this total. So it's a very special wine. I also have some reservations around the word reserve just because they can just slap it on any wine and be like, this is a reserve wine and make more money than they would normally. But so if you see reserve on a bottle, that means they put something special or it's a lower production wine, and they're usually going to be really good. I feel like I could sip this on a cold day. It is really heavy though, so I think something like a big steak with some garlic mashed potatoes and just some asparagus right on the side would fit really well, just to cut through, have the fat cut through the acidity a little bit. Also, I just now realized that some sort of decadent dark chocolate cake with some raspberry drizzling right on top is excellent with this as well. Just really get into that full-bodied dark red wine. I think overall this wine is fantastic. It is pretty steep. You can't buy it anymore. As I said, it's an older wine, but they sell the same wine from the same vineyard for about $72 to $80 at the winery. So for the price point, it is fantastic. It's a little pricey. So again, not an everyday wine, more of an anniversary holiday wine. But yeah, I give it 8 or 9 out of 10 for sure. I love Cab Sauv, and specifically De Brule. Haven't had a bad wine from De Brule. So if you have any opportunity to check out any of those, definitely would go ahead and do it. Although Owen Row is also only about 40 minutes from campus, so it's in Wapato, Washington, which is sort of a suburb of the Yakima Valley. So I'm pretty sure they're doing curbside pickup as well. So if you want to drive down there and check them out, definitely go ahead and do that.
All right. Any questions for Curtis? He just ran through a lot of info there. Talk to us about 10-year-old aging and what to look for in the color. Any questions for him? Okay. All right. Well, that kind of concludes our presentation. So now for kind of the second half of our virtual tasting here, we want to hear what you guys might be tasting out there. This is just kind of an open social session now. So feel free to ask away or share what you might have in front of you. I'm drinking a little Poet's Leap Riesling. This is from Long Shadows Winery. The winemaker and owner is Alan Shoup, former CFO of Chateau Saint Michel. This is his retirement project here. So high acid Riesling from Washington State that I enjoy. Anybody else want to share what they have? Curtis?
I was just gonna ask everyone, during this whole quarantine and lockdown, do you find yourself buying more expensive bottles of wine now that you don't have anywhere to go, and that you can sip the whole thing and not have to worry about wasting it, or do you find yourself buying like box wine or cheaper wines? I'm actually really curious how how consumers are feeling for this.
That's an excellent question. This has come up many times, and I'm curious to hear anyone who wants to chime in on this, because we were having a discussion about this earlier. How are consumer buying habits shifting with lockdown? Anyone want to chime in?
We really don't leave the house much. We do curbside pickup. So I go on the Total Wine app and I go to their highly rated section. Since I can't one of my favorite things to do is read the descriptions on the shelves.
Mhm.
But since I can't go do that, I'm counting on the highly rated list to pick bottles. And, our price point's kind of anywhere from $8 to $30, depending on how we're fancy we're feeling. But, and then we've got our go-tos. Like I'm drinking a brown cab right now, which is
Nice.
sort of a go-to that I know is always going to be
Mhm.
good. But as far as how we pick it, it's much different because it's what's available on the app without anyone to talk to about it for me. And I'm Curtis's mom. I don't know much about wine except what he teaches me. So yeah, it's kind of a crapshoot. I'll pick a couple highly rated cheap ones, a couple standbys, go pick up the box and hope for the best.
Interesting.
Along with that, do you think some sort of like, would you use like some websites, like IT websites that have like talk to a specialist? Like if Total Wine had something like that, would you take advantage of that where if you're on their app or website, you could talk to somebody? But it wouldn't really be the same. You could like text back and forth, I guess, on their app with somebody that would steer you
I
in the
would use
direction you're looking
that.
for.
If I don't have to call somebody on the phone and talk to them with my voice, I would definitely do a back and forth chat on the app, especially if I wanted something special for a quarantine birthday or whatever, where you want to go out a little bit further and you don't know what you're doing. That would be very helpful.
So I'll chime in with that one.
Yeah, please do.
Because I, for the first time, purchased wine online through wine.com. And it was kind of because we were stuck, obviously, in the, home isolation. But I was sending for a birthday present. I needed to find something for somebody's 40th birthday. And so I decided to just kind of look around and see what I could find that had varieties that my friend might like. Turns out that obviously shipping is kind of expensive for wine because of the weight. So I ended up buying a membership and thought, well, if I buy her wine, I'll buy myself wine. And it was kind of challenging to like sift through all of the different types of wines, but they have chat features, and I actually utilized that just to get some expert advice on the different types of wines that they were actually selling. So I think it's a really cool new way to get wine. Yeah, so I definitely will say that my purchasing behavior has shifted a lot. Like, it's exciting to go online and look for different types of varietals, I think.
Interesting.
Do you find yourself buying wine you wouldn't normally? Like
Yeah.
you see a varietal you've never heard of and you would buy that more now than before?
Yes, definitely. But usually what I do is, you go to the wine, like I go to a wine shop or whatever and peruse, but I'm always in a hurry. And so I think just the slower pace and being able to look online and take the time to really think about what I'm filling my shopping cart with. Does that make sense? So I'll actually fill my shopping cart with 6 bottles of wine, and then I'll go back, the next day and say, okay, I don't really need a $40 bottle of wine. I really could go with the $15 bottle. But I would never, well, I shouldn't say never, but I wouldn't go and naturally just go into a shop and grab a $40 bottle of wine and put it in my cart and then put it back later. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you just get more time, I think, to kind of process what you would want to experiment with.
That's interesting. So it sounds like you're making more informed and specific choices, less impulsive choices. And it's interesting that you mentioned joining a wine club. We had a guest speaker yesterday in Tasting Your Management class, and he was a manager. He's a what is his title? Vice president or vice
president of operations.
Of operations. Regardless, he had mentioned that club membership had actually increased during quarantine. And I thought that was interesting. I was anticipating that it would reduce, that people would be more cautious with their spending, but they were actually, it was the opposite. They were more willing to join a club and get those curated, hand-selected wines sent to their house. They wanted to take the guesswork out of it, and they just wanted to set up an automatic delivery system. So I thought that was fascinating and really encouraging for our industry too, that sales were still strong in that way. Anybody else want to chime in on their quarantine wine choices or how their buying habits might have shifted? I know I'm doing a lot from Costco. My whole world revolves around Costco right now because they are close to me. So a lot of Costco wine is what what I find myself doing. Carly, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I was actually going to talk about that a little because, I believe Tanya was saying she was spend words up to $30. And I'm like, oh, I would love to do that right now. I mean, I was doing that before because, I am in this program. So I would be buying, $30, $40 a bottle of wine because technically it's my education, like that's what I'm wanting to learn from that. But now since quarantine has happened, I'm buying like $4 bottles of wine, bottom shelf. And I think as a student too, talking to my friends and a lot of my peers, like for us, like as college students, that's kind of what we're veering towards. And box wine, that's also been another hot topic between all of us too, is the box wines is just, it's crazy. I believe Curtis brought this up yesterday during one of our classes. You can just open a box of box wine and keep it in your fridge for a month and it's good to go. And so, for me, I've been kind of definitely going towards that style of wine. And yeah, so just kind of chime in about that and how us as students are affording our wine. So.
Yeah.
What are your favorite box wines?
My favorite box wines.
Yeah, let's hear about that.
If I'm going to be honest, I believe it's pronounced Franzia. I just go for that.
Yes.
It's like, that's just kind of what I know. That's just going to be like a solid boxed wine. In general, everyone knows it. It's cheap. And it holds up well in my fridge. So.
Yeah, I live in a house with 2 other roommates, and we have 4 open boxes of wine right now. So we buy a box of wine, and it's all right? So if we all bought a different bottle of wine and opened them, they'd only be good for 2 days. So now it reduces the amount we have to go to the store. We just always have wine available on tap because we have these boxes of wine available, and so it's a really easy, nice way to just have it available.
It is. Box wine is having a moment right now. And that brings up just the structure of what a box wine is. It's hermetically sealed in a bladder in a box. So there's virtually no exposure to air. So you do have this really long shelf life with it. Whereas when you pull a cork on a bottle, you have maybe 3 or 4 days of optimal drinking conditions. But when you have the big bladder of wine, you get that real long lifespan. And they come in, 5 liter and upwards. So it is a very economical choice, and you're seeing more and more quality in box wines. I know Charles Smith just released a house wine in a box, so that's a really recognizable label. So there is more variety out there as well. So, sorry, Carly, was there something you wanted to say? I hate Zoom for that reason. Sorry if I
No, all I was gonna say is Curtis said it's wine on tap, and I think that's like the best way to put it.
It literally is. Tap. It's a spigot.
This is one my roommate brought the other day. It's called Box Wise or something like that. Box Wise, I think is the name. Cab Sauv from California. And we got it because of the label, like if that's what you want to call it, a box. It's very interesting looking, and just the other night we drank about half of it because it was that good. I think the stigma on box wine kind of needs to go away as we're going onwards. It's just another carrier. It's just another bottle. But I think wineries are not as likely to put in their best wine into a box because of that stigma that box wine is supposed to be of lesser quality or whatever else. But if I could buy a $30 bottle of wine in a gallon or however much this is, 3 liters, and just have it around forever, less trips to the store, you know what you're getting, you can taste the wine for a couple different months, and I think that would be a optimal way to package wine.
Curtis, can you tell me where in California, does it say bottled in Modesto or produced in Modesto? I'm curious.
I don't know.
Or is it a California? I'm assuming that it is, but I don't.
It just says California as far as I can see.
I'm thinking it's Gallo.
Vented and bottled by BZ Cellars in Manteca, California. Manteca. Manteca. Manteca.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious to see if it was a Gallo product. Gallo is the largest winery in the world. It is by volume, and they own probably a good 30% of the market share of wines that are produced and consumed in America. And they're out of Modesto, California. So you don't always see Gallo on the label, but that's the calling card. If it says bottled and produced in Modesto, California, it's under the Gallo, Ernest and Julio Gallo label.
Barefoot.
Barefoot, yes, we talked about that this week. They own everything. They own
Yeah,
some.
I had no clue before this week that Barefoot was Gallo wine. It like blew my mind.
Yeah, it is mind blowing to look at how that the expansion of that particular company. It was that case study we looked at was fascinating. Read the book, Gallo Be Thy Name. It's really fascinating. So, anyone else have anything to add to this conversation? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'll introduce myself as well. So I come from the brewing department, actually. We've infiltrated your
Yes,
club.
I'm
And
glad that you're here. Yay!
well, thank you for the invite. That was great.
Mhm.
So I work as a technician currently in the program and brew beer with students and think about these concepts of fermentation in general. So I like being able to hear and learn from you all as well. I'm drinking a beer wine hybrid. So this is a wheat ale that I soured with lactobacilli, and then I put it on top of Pinot Noir grapes for about 3 weeks.
Wow, that's
So sour, but the Pinot grape is coming through, so it's still kind of jammy, using one of your guys' words. It's not a brewing word, but so yeah, so I like these overlapping things that aren't necessarily, tax code wine, tax code beer. I like things that use fruit in them and can kind of overlap. So yeah, again, thanks. My buying habits, I honestly haven't been buying beer I didn't brew lately. I've been trying to get rid of all the student beer. So I've had a lot of student beer to drink lately. Yeah,
I'm super curious about your beer that you have in front of you. How does it taste? How is it?
Yeah, break that down for us, please.
So it's sour. So the first thing people are going to get is a kick. It's this is now aged about 6 months, so it's the lactobacilli has really taken hold. I like to early on they're about 3.7 pH. Now we're probably down to around 3.4, 3.3. So it's crisp, carbonated. I like when it sits around and actually warms up because then the sour isn't as strong and the jamminess of the grapes will come through. So yeah, what other questions did you have? Oh, just what I'm tasting. Yes, the sour's forward. It's really clean. Often, so this is actually a Berliner Weiss. If you want to know the style, it's a German beer from the early 1900s that was popular, a sour ale. So they would sour their beer on purpose, right, to get it, and it actually protects it from contamination from other things. So I'm a big fan of sour and using bacteria in my beer, using bacteria and yeast. So I study yeast. My thing is really yeast in general. So.
Is this the first time you've done like a hybrid beer before, or is this something you do frequently?
No, that's my thing. So I've been doing, I have an apricot ale that I just found one more of that had aged for about a year, no, probably about 7 months. That was really wonderful. So I love putting fruit. I don't know where I think the line is drawn at how much sugar came from the fruit versus the grain, but I like grain for the mouthfeel. So I like the thicker part of it too from the grain.
Your pickle beer was amazing too.
I make a pickle beer. Yep, I have actually 5 gallons of that right now.
That sounds amazing.
We're gonna have to collaborate. Like this is gonna have to be a thing we do again.
Yeah, no, I love it. Thanks for inviting us. We also do a event on Fridays. Every Friday we do we're calling it a fermentation club. So we go on and off. 1 week we'll do beer styles. So we've done a pale ale and a stout so far in our group, and we're working with people on giving sensory feedback and learning all the jargon. Mostly public though, so we're working with faculty. Our students aren't as connected as you guys are, so we like this thing where all you guys are doing it for a club and probably classes too. But so we like this format of, now we don't have a choice now, right? So we're trying to do more of this online connecting to people. The off weeks we usually have a speaker, so we've had a couple speakers so far. We had a head brewer at Wandering Hop who does non-traditional beers, puts donuts in their beer and cake, and all sorts of weird things. And they're really good. They make really good beer. So then we had a cider person talk about their cider and the cider industry. And this Friday we'll have a student of ours, an alumni, who's now starting a program in Olympia teaching distilling science. So he's going to talk about distillation and liquors and that whole spread. It's a very general audience, so it's a good way to jump in and just kind of see this. So we'll make sure that link gets sent around. Everyone's invited to show up. We have about, I don't know, on average 15 to 20 people show up.
I'll chime in just real quick and encourage my students to participate in any of this. Our program is really focused on the business end of the wine industry, and when looking at it from that perspective, it all plays in together. The distribution, all of the legality pieces of it, it encompasses beer, wine, and spirits. So anything they can pick up and diversify their knowledge base with a little info on beer and distillation, all the better. I mean, if you went into working for a distributor, there's a strong chance you would be asked to sell beer and spirits as well. So the more knowledge you have, the better of the whole industry. And then jumping topics, I really wanted to ask you, I have just a very rudimentary understanding of beer, but how would the beer that you are trying right now compare to something like a lambic? I think of like a framboise lambic, like a raspberry based style like that. And it sounds like maybe that's the direction that beer is going in. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit and elaborate on what those styles are for the group.
I love that question. So my favorite style is a traditional lambic. A lambic is a wild fermented, more like a wine. Barrels, oak barrels, and it's sour. And so the framboise that's in America, the Lindemans, I believe.
Framboise. Mm-hmm.
It's really syrupy and really sweet. So they sell. So when it gets sold to America, they sweeten it up. So they back sweeten really heavily. Traditional lambics are dry, often not on fruit, especially raspberries. They're often on cherries, so a dark cherry to make a creek will be a traditional. They seem to make that one to sell to America, the framboise. So that one's really sweet, really fruit forward. Traditional lambics. Mine's more like that actually, with the grapes in there. A little bit more sour, but there's no funk. So we talk about funk on purpose. We like Brettanomyces sometimes. Right, I know the wine world doesn't care for that. Doesn't go as well, right? It's a balance. Farm goes well with grain, right? Grain makes sense at a farm. Fruit doesn't always make sense with farm. But so very similar. This is clean though, so it's not going to have any Brettanomyces. I do a split batch version where I didn't put the grapes in and I put the Brettanomyces in to bring more complexity. But I tend to like to just taste the fruit.
Thanks.
Yeah, I love lambics. So it all comes from that Belgian.
Yeah, love it. Any other questions for the group? Anyone have any discussion points? Eric, are you with the craft brewing program as well, by chance?
I teach the biochemistry brewing.
Okay.
Actually, more of a plant ecologist, but I got roped into the brewing program. And it's really fun. I've been learning a lot, and this is a great group you guys have going. This is really neat.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for the feedback. This is our first go around. This is totally our first go around. We had planned, actually, we were going to do a Wildcat Wine Trails. This is pre-COVID. So we had a big event planned. We were working with Dr. Jellum. We were going to provide a van service and take people on a little wine trails tour of Eastern Washington. So when COVID hit and all of that got put on pause, we weren't sure how to proceed with our club and going forward with any events. So this right now is what we came up with. So thank you for the feedback, because it is, kind of happened on the fly. Curtis, did you want to chime in?
Let Eric talk first. Go ahead.
So this is all you guys are in the club?
Mm-hmm.
It's just me, Tyler, Carly, Brian, and Mackenzie. Sorry.
Okay.
For right now, we just got started. Like we made the club right before all of this happened, and so because we made our club and we don't actually have any members other than the officers, we were like, we need some sort of promotion tactic. some sort of something to celebrate, you know, the club happening and other things like that.
Yeah, so I'm the faculty advisor. My name is Jill Clark. I'm the program director for wine studies. And then we have a couple other faculty members here. This is Dr. Jellum down here. She's with Hospitality, Tourism, and Events. And we have Christine Miller. She's also with Hospitality, you guys should introduce yourselves. So feel free, go for it, Carla.
Hi, I'm Carla Jellum. I teach in the Hospitality, Tourism, and Events program, and I was really fortunate to start a partnership last year with the wine program, and I helped John Huddleston take several of these students actually to Spain to do the wine international wine trip that they do. And then I partnered up with Jill to plan our next international trip, which was going to be to France and Germany, and it was canceled, unfortunately, because of the situation. So, so yeah, we're trying to build some more partnerships between the Hospitality, Tourism, and Events program with the wine program, because there's a lot of parallels and partnerships that we can have together. So that's my role.
Yeah. Christine, do you want to introduce yourself to the group?
Hi everyone, I'm Christine Miller. I'm actually an alumna of Central. I did my undergrad studies here and I just returned to the States about a year ago. So very happy to be back on campus and working with the future Wildcats, as it were. I'm actually a sommelier and a certified specialist of wine, and I teach for the hospitality program. So I kind of get to have a foot in both worlds, I guess, right? So it's really fun to be back. And I've watched with interest and seen the program grow over the years. And it started about, I think a year or two, I'm going to date myself, but a year or two after I graduated, Amy Muma started it, and I just missed it. So I was a little frustrated by that, but I'm glad I'm back and I can participate now as a faculty member. So thank you for letting me join you.
Nice. All right. Well, Curtis?
I just wanted one closing question or whatever. So we plan on doing these sort of virtual tastings once a month. If not more than that. If we had a topic or a different, so this week's session was like kind of how to professionally taste plus Washington. So we kind of showcased Washington. Is there any topics that you guys would like to see? We kind of have some, like what you can get in town was something that we were also thinking about, because tailor it towards Ellensburg, because there's no Total Wine or anything even close. So like go to Fred Meyer or to Grocery Outlet and see what you can get, and that way you can kind of taste along with us. Is there some sort of topic or something that you would like to see in a future tasting?
For a future tasting, it might be fun to just pick a grape varietal and then try to see if you can get that from different regions.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Maybe rosé. I think it'd be fun to kind of go in the direction of food pairing too. So, but any feedback, feel free to chime in. We're going to be discussing and choosing our next topic soon. So
I had kind of a hard time finding the wines.
Yeah, that's kind of why we wanted to do something a little bit easier to find, especially because like the wine I did was impossible to get. I mean, my mom asked if she could find it somewhere. I'm like, sorry. But yeah.
No, that was really interesting. I enjoyed that anyway, regardless if I could taste with you. But yeah, I was able to find one of the wines, the one that Carly was presenting, but the other ones were kind of hard to find, or their vintages were wrong or something. So my recommendation would just be, it's fun to have that variety, but as long as there's easy access for at least a couple of the wines so we can compare them or something would be great.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's fun. I think it would be fun to have more of an interactive piece involved. So maybe that's something we'll really look at doing next time. Yeah, these guys had mentioned, was it Grocery Outlet? Was there a Grocery Outlet in town? They were all telling me that is their favorite spot to get wine.
If you know what you're looking for, you can find great wine for cheap at Grocery Outlet.
Yeah, you have to be careful of the vintages though. I stopped a woman once.
Yeah.
You don't want that. Stop right there. And she's like, oh, what do I want? And my husband's like, oh, here we go. And like 40 minutes later, I was done talking to her.
All right. Well, we're actually pretty close on time. Oh, Carly, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to actually say just a big thank you from myself and my fellow officers. I know we are very, very appreciative that everyone that came here today and turned out, I mean, like we said, this is our first time doing this. So I really hope you guys enjoyed, and we're very appreciative. Hope you guys join in the future. And yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us. Yeah, so we're right there for time. So I think we're going to close this session out. I am going to ask our officers to stay on so we can just kind of recap a little bit. But thank you all so much for joining us. Yay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for including me.
Thanks, Room. Awesome to meet you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Good to meet everyone.
Looks like my roommate